Hello, beautiful people of the internet. This is a very different review. This is our first movie review.
Yeah.
We're branching out, talking about some different content. Um, this was Nick's idea. He thought that we'd start reviewing some movies, and I was completely on board because of the subject matter.
Yeah, let's say.
If you couldn't see me in my hybrid suit jacket right now, I was completely okay with the idea.
Say Spider-Man, you're sold.
Yes, yes. So this might be something that we give more time to in the future. We don't know yet, but we figured we'd start off with a bang with arguably one of the greatest movies of all time, Spider-Man: No Way Home.
I was already thought because we actually have not discussed this at all.
We haven't. We haven't. This is going to be a very, very natural review. Usually a little bit on the inside of our process. Usually we talk at length about these kind of things prior to, and we're kind of just reiterating points. We haven't, because I saw it late, and because we just, this kind of time of the year has been so busy, we haven't got time to talk about it. So we're doing that now. So we're going to keep things spoiler-free in general up until a point in the video. And we will notify you heavily before we do. And if at that point you want to click off, be our guest, come go see the movie, and then come back to us. But we'll be sure to let you know before we spoil the heck out of everything. Before I start to gush, Nick, how did you like the movie?
Yeah, I was gonna say probably let me go first because
no, it's fine.
You're the Spider-Man fanboy here, so
it's fine. It's fine. Go ahead.
You have a soapbox. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, to me, it is the best live-action Spider-Man movie ever made. I don't know if I'll give it the full best because Into the Spider-Verse exists, but it's up there.
Let me just go on the record saying I do not think it's better than Into the Spider-Verse. I'm not one of those people.
So,
it ranks right below it. Actually, it's not. Actually, it doesn't rank right below it. I'll get into that later, but it is. It did not beat Into the Spider-Verse for me. So
yeah, but it's fair. I mean,
but if it does for you, that's fine because this movie's great.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, to me, it is the best live action. I think it hit every note it needed to hit. There's other movies, in this post Endgame MCU. I haven't actually seen most of them. But what I've heard is kind of mixed. This is the one that finally kind of does the best job of moving forward with it because we're going to the multiverse with this next era of the MCU. And this really pushes that. And you couldn't tell by the trailers because I mean this is not a spoiler because I don't consider what's in the trailers a spoiler.
No, absolutely not.
So we see villains from Spider-Man movies before in this trailer. So we see Doc Ock, we hear Green Goblin laugh, we see Electro and things like that. So we're really just throwing the kitchen sink into this thing. But they do a fantastic job. They do what no Spider-Man movie has ever done. Well, live-action Spider-Man movie because we have Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 had the same problem of just too many villains. No one had enough screen time. This is the first live-action Spider-Man to do that same idea and get away with it.
Yes.
Every villain has their moment in it. They actually feel like fully fleshed out characters. No one feels like got gypped on screen time. It is pull it off masterfully. Peter, Peter is being pushed to where he's never been pushed before. And this is weird. I don't even now. I don't know if I would still call my favorite live action Spider-Man with Tom Holland. A lot of times I had the issue with him before. I love Homecoming and Far From Home are still great movies in their own right. Don't get me wrong. I had an issue with the Spider-Man just because he sometimes felt like he was not Spider-Man but Iron Man Jr. sometimes. This feels like no, I'm Spider-Man. This fully feels like he stepped into the shoes of that character. And I can't be happy about that. That's the direction they're taking it.
Yeah. I will also go on the record saying this is not my favorite live-action Spider-Man movie.
It's not? Okay.
That will still go to Homecoming.
Okay.
Strictly because Homecoming is such a lighthearted, fun Spider-Man movie. Mm-hmm. And as the trilogy of Tom Holland Spider-Man movies gone on, the storylines have gotten darker and things have gotten more complex, which is perfectly fine. But Homecoming just hits like a note inside me of like just Spider-Man being Spider-Man. Like the scene of him in I don't want to gush too much about Homecoming, but like the scene of him just talking to Friday, the AI in the suit, and just chilling and hanging out, is just hilarious, and I love it. And I disagree with the Iron Man Jr. statement just a little bit.
Yeah, I figured that much. We have our opinions on Tom Holland. But...
Yeah. I think this is why, because this whole trilogy of movies is an origin story for Spider-Man.
Okay, no, this. I wasn't thinking. With 1 and 2, we weren't thinking that was direction.
Yeah.
But 3 capping this thing off. No, this is generally we
origin story.
Yeah, this is an origin story because you always complained about kind of like the Batman syndrome. We have to kill Uncle his parents.
Ben.
You have to kill Uncle Ben all the time, like we did in Amazing Spider-Man. It's like the story's done and over with. Marvel went no. What is an origin movie? We do an origin trilogy.
Yeah, and so it's so in the trilogy of movies, the theme is Peter upping his game and becoming Spider-Man. So in Homecoming, he does get a lot of assistance from Tony Stark, and then in Far From Home, Tony Stark's dead, so he doesn't have any assistance from Tony Stark, and uses his own ingenuity to beat Mysterio. And then in No Way Home, this is the Peter Parker show. It is up to him, and his values are what drive the narrative in the movie, and it's fantastic. It's liberating and awesome to see him come into his own, and the way that the writers care about this freaking franchise and this character is so immaculate. And we'll get more into it when I can actually unload everything into the world. But they nail who Peter Parker is and who Spider-Man is down to a T, and nail who Aunt May is down to a T. It's I've always said that through all these movies, but No Way Home is the hallmark example of getting a character so right, and not messing anything up, and just letting that character be who he is. That's the problem with comic book movies. It's the problem that DC always misses, is they do not understand the characters that they are portraying. I don't care if it's a dream sequence, you don't give Batman a gun, because that's one of his freaking rules.
No, I mean, I agree. That's just someone who loves
And
DC more than Marvel.
Spider-Man is a character who is marked by his failures. Peter and Spider-Man do not fear anything except for their failures. Those are the things that keep them up at night. And this movie nails that. And just in multiple ways nails that. That is who Spider-Man is. If Spider-Man has the chance, even if it's 0.000000001 to save everyone, he's going to do it. No matter the damage to himself, no matter the costs to himself, no matter anything, he's going to do it. And this movie is the representation of that in live action. Kudos to Marvel and Sony for playing along and making this movie happen. Kudos to the writers. Kudos to Tom Holland for acting his ass off. This is the best he's ever been in the role.
Oh, easily.
And this is proof that his second trilogy is going to be even better, because we've given Spider-Man some hard stuff now. Both the movies before it didn't really do that. Endgame a little bit more, but that wasn't his movie. But Peter B. Parker said it to Miles in Into the Spider-Verse the best. What makes Spider-Man Spider-Man is that he keeps getting up after he's knocked down. And so up until this point, Tom Holland's Peter Parker didn't get knocked down a whole bunch. And in this movie, he does. And he gets back up.
He gets knocked down hard.
He gets back up and is so much stronger than he ever was before. And that is... They just nailed it. I've said many times through Marvel's MCU, just amazingness that they have gotten so many characters right, and the characters that they didn't get right, they made positive changes to that have led to ramifications throughout all of comics. Tony Stark's a perfect example of that. Tony Stark was boring in the comics until Robert Downey Jr. And now Iron Man in the comics is Robert Downey Jr. So they made worthwhile changes to make characters more interesting. Thor's another good example. Fuck, I hate Thor in Thor 1 and Thor 2. Thor Ragnarok Thor, give it to me all day long, baby. Because he's fun. Comic book movies are supposed to be fun until they're not fun. And this movie has its fun moments, but it has its not fun moments too. But they are not fun for the sake of developing Peter Parker into the man that he is supposed to be. And that's why this whole trilogy is an origin story. Mm-hmm. And it even ends in the post-credit scene in the most beautiful way that it could have ever ended. That it certifiably is an origin story, and I cannot wait for the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll cover that in credits.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited.
I mean, we'll just get into it. We'll do our final ratings now because people want to hop off.
Yeah.
So since you just had a soapbox, what's your rating for it?
It is I'm breaking a rule here. I'm not doing half ratings. I'm doing a quarter rating. It's a 9.75. Okay. The only thing that holds it back from being a 10 is it does have some pacing issues in the first half of the movie. Okay. But once the plot hits, it doesn't slow down. But getting to that point is a little bit longer than I would have liked. I wish if there were one of the villains in that section to inject some life into it. I think it would have been a 10. But because of those pacing issues, even though they're important because they develop Peter's relationship to his friends a little bit more, I already know that Peter cares about his friends, so like we could have done a little bit less of that, so that we can keep the movie rolling a little bit. But yeah, 9.75, must see. It is one of the greatest Spider-Man movies. It is one of the greatest Spider-Man representations. I don't think that it hits the same mark as Insomniac Spider-Man or Peter B. Parker from No Way Home. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse. But Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I'm glad he's sticking around. I'm glad Sony and Marvel are Marvel and Sony and Disney are playing nice, because you can't, like, this, if this was Tom Holland's last Spider-Man movie, like, oh my god, that would be heartbreaking, because he has such a bright future after this movie from a certain point of view. But
yeah, from a point of view.
Yeah,
from a right point of view, yes.
Yes. That I cannot wait. So, yeah, 9.75. Go see it. If you haven't seen it, go. What are you doing? Go see it.
So, okay, I won't break the rules. I'm gonna stay in the point thing. But it's 9.5 out of 10. Same thing.
I couldn't give it a 9.5. I couldn't do it. It's too low.
But 10's too high.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the same thing. Pacing the first part. Also, Doctor Strange is sometimes kind of stupid in this movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is not really a spoiler anymore, because this is in the credit. We kind of understand what's going on. He's in the trailer. He's casting a spell to make people forget about Peter. Forget people that Spider-Man. Hell, I can't talk. Have people forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And the whole thing is he tells, "I'm gonna do this for you," and he starts casting the spell, and doesn't actually go through like anything with Peter about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you should have like talked to him about this first. Like, he was a little dumb, and I know Doctor Strange is that dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. But 9.75, I'm not. If this has to be the only quarter rating I give, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm sure it won't. I'm sure I'll have to break the rules somewhere else. But 9.5 was just too low, and 10 was too high. So where do you go? You go straight down the middle, 9.75. All right, so that concludes the spoiler-free part. This is where we're gonna start really getting into the meat and potatoes of this thing. So if you have not seen it, please go see it. Come back to the video, see our opinions. That's a crucial part. See it and then come back to the video. But yeah, let's get into it. So this movie picks up right after Far From Home. Peter has been revealed by Mysterio to be Spider-Man, and the ramifications for that are huge. First off, he gets framed for Mysterio's murder, and has to go through an actual investigation for that, in which he is acquitted by one Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil.
And not just any like, oh, we just got some random schmuck to play Matt Murdock. No, they got Netflix Matt Murdock.
Yes.
The Matt we all know. Like, so effectively, those are now like they're always canon, but like a loose canon.
Yes.
This is hard canon now.
Yes. So hopefully we'll see more of him and Jessica Drew, and not Jessica Drew, Jessica Jones. Excuse me. Not Jessica Drew. That's a different Spider person. Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. Maybe not Iron Fist, but maybe Iron Fist. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that was super cool to see. And he has a really cool moment where he's talking with Peter, Aunt May, and Happy, and somebody, an anti-Spider-Man person, throws a brick through their window, and Matt Murdock catches it. And so we get to see him use his powers a little bit there, which is really cool. And Peter asks him, like, how did you do that? But then Happy swoops in to ask a stupid question and ruins the moment. But it is still really cool to see that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to do that. They could have just put him on there. Everybody in the audience would have cheered, hey, it's Daredevil. We know that guy. But they gave him a second to use his powers, which was super cool.
I was the only one who clapped in the theater when he showed up on the screen.
Oh, that sucks.
I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with all y'all?
Oh, man. God damn it. People, go watch Daredevil on Netflix. It's good. So then we see other ramifications of him. So Matt Murdock warns him that, yeah, you've been proven innocent in the court of law, but not in the court of public opinion, and that rings true. So paparazzis are constantly following him around and following his friends around and outside of his house all day and night. Because of the security risks, they actually move into Happy's apartment, which is hilarious and cool because him and Aunt May have broken up, and that's hilarious. They go back to school, him, MJ, and Ned, and there's a funny scene with Hannibal Buress and the other two guys, the other two teachers, where the other two teachers are welcoming Peter back, and they have like this whole Spider-Man shrine, and Hannibal Buress is an anti-Spider-Man person. And it's like, Mysterio's right, you killed Mysterio. So and it's their senior year, so they're applying to colleges, and all of the trio get denied by all of their college picks because of the Spider-Man snafu. Which, disappointing, but like MJ and Ned are fine with it, but Peter's not. So that's when Peter goes to Doctor Strange and asks him if there's a spell to get rid of people's memories that he is Spider-Man. And so at this point, we see Wong come in, and Wong is now Sorcerer Supreme, which is interesting and hilarious. Because Doctor Strange got snapped in Endgame, and so it just kind of gets given to Wong. And Wong tells Doctor Strange not to do the spell, but Doctor Strange, being Doctor Strange, does the spell. And so this will make it apparently it's a pretty easy spell, according to Doctor Strange, and this will make everybody forget that Peter is Spider-Man. And Peter stops him and goes, "Wait, everyone?" And Doctor Strange goes, "Yes, everyone. Listen to me when I talk to you, boy." And so Peter starts changing the spell because he wants MJ to know, and he wants Ned to know, and he wants Aunt May to still know, and he wants Happy to still know. And so through his constant things, he's changing the spell, and that's changing basically the fabric of reality. And so Doctor Strange has to contain the spell, but he doesn't contain it fully. And then we get this really cool scene of him of Doctor Strange asking Peter if he's consulted with the school to get them to change their opinions. And of course, Peter says no. And Doctor Strange goes on a tirade, like, he didn't have to resort to this, like, final solution, dude. Like, you could
the easy thing.
You could ask them to appeal. It's okay. And so he kicks him out of the Sanctum Sanctorum, and Peter follows his advice and tracks down the admissions counselor for MIT, which is where they all want to go. And we get this very cute scene of him getting dressed up, and like the woman is stuck in traffic, and so he approaches the car door, knocks on the door. It's very Peter Parker. Like
it's very him.
As a Spider-Man fan, I'm like, okay, this is pretty funny. And so, and this is the part where we get our first villain reveal. And the first notion that something is up. So as he's talking to this admissions counselor, his spider sense starts going off, and out of the bridge that they are on erupts Dr. Octopus from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, which there were cheers and excitement. So I was jumping up and down in my seat. It's not my favorite Doc Ock, but he's definitely up there.
I mean, he got out of the park. I mean, it's been, what, 20 years since that movie? Close to 20 years. Didn't miss a beat.
Nope.
Did not miss a beat.
If you told me that he walked off Spider-Man 2 set and walked immediately onto this set, I would have been like, yeah, makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Got it, yeah. He's got a darker coat this time around. Don't know why he picked that one up, but hey, it's fine. It's cool. It's whatever. And so...
What to do in the fight, because they clash.
Yep.
And
Peter's wearing his Iron Spider suit. He didn't wear his upgraded suit underneath his fancy clothes, but he definitely brought the Iron Spider suit.
Yeah, like, so I mean, Doc Ock recognizes that, he sees the Spider-Man suit, so he thinks he's Peter, which he is technically correct. It is Peter, just not his Peter.
Yes.
So they fight, and he has Spider-Man pinned. But because our Peter is wearing the Iron Spider suits, he's able to use the nanites and take control of Doc Ock's arms. Yeah, and Doc Ock is so confused about this. It's great.
Yeah, it's an awesome moment. So he has him pinned, and he's going for a final strike, and he has like the needle things out, and so he actually rips the mask off of Peter, and that's how he takes the nano machines. And so Peter redirects them. No, he rips out the chest, excuse me. And so that's where he's aiming. And so he redirects the nanomachines to the chest to protect himself. And then that's when Doc Ock sees that he's not his Peter Parker. And that's when Tom Holland takes control of his arms. And it's one of the best scenes because Doc Ock is so caught off guard because his Peter doesn't have these kind of technological advances to do these things. And it's just an awesome moment. So he uses he uses Doc Ock's arms to wrap him up and takes him back to Doctor Strange and to be like,
what happened here?
What's going on, man? And Doctor Strange lets him know that because the spell got messed up, that there are some people that are coming into this world that know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And so that's where we get the list of villains. The list of villains is everybody from these movies that knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So the spell kind of got... Because Peter Parker was changing the spell, it opened the door to let these people in.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a slight plot hole with this. Very slight plot hole. With Amazing Spider-Man 2 specifically. Which that movie had plot holes galore anyway.
Yes.
But so other two, there's no multiple villains. I'm thinking of it. There's the new Green Goblin, and Electro. New Green Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man 2 knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Electro doesn't. But Electro's in the movie, and new Green Goblin is not.
Well, that's because New Green Goblin sucks.
You're right. And granted, also to do right, I mean, Electro in that movie sucks too.
Yes.
And Marvel does their magic, and we're gonna fix this character. We're gonna give him a redemption.
Well, so here's the thing. This movie is a redemption for so many things. So many things. We'll and I'll talk about those as we go through. But like, Marvel was like, there's been some wrong done with Spider-Man, and we're gonna fix it in this here movie. And for the most part, they do. It's like, holy shit.
We'll fix it.
Yeah, so Doctor Strange traps Doc Ock in this like magical cage basically, and takes the armband from the Iron Spider suit and imbues it with magic. So he basically gives him a shot that sends the villains back to the magical cages in Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum. And so, with a little help from Ned and MJ, who are researching sightings of like new villains, basically to find these guys, Peter goes off and starts to capture these guys like Spider-Man villain Pokemon.
That's the way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want? So Peter's Iron Spider suit is damaged, so he has to take out his upgraded suit, but it got stained by an anti-Spider-Man supporter, and so he turns it inside out, which is the black and gold suit that you see in the trailers, which is super cool. But he gets word of these like electrical fluctuations at this like electrical plant, and that's where he finds Electro and Sandman from Spider-Man 3. And so him and Sandman have a moment of like, hey, we gotta stop this guy. He's kind of going insane. And so they work together to stop him. And they and like he doesn't like, it's not really even a fight. He kind of like talks him down, and Electro kind of like talks to him. He's naked because in where he was taken from Amazing Spider-Man 2, he was pure energy. So they have a funny scene of giving him clothes and stuff, and then Spider-Man shoots him with the bracelet to send him back to Doctor Strange's place. But this scares Sandman, because Sandman's like, what did you do to him? Did you kill him? And Peter's like, no, just listen. And so the second that Sandman gets aggressive, he shoots Sandman to send him back as well. And so then we go back to Sanctum Sanctorum, where we also see that the Lizard has been captured from Amazing Spider-Man 1. Mm-hmm. And so for those at home, we've got Sandman from Spider-Man 3. We've got Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2. We've got Lizard from Amazing Spider-Man, and Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Missing the big one.
But we're missing the big one. During the fight on the bridge, there was another person that came and intervened in the fight, and that was one William Dafoe playing as Green Goblin. Let's take a second to talk about William Dafoe for a second, because it's indisputable that he's the best part of Spider-Man 1.
Oh yeah, no, I mean this is no case of perfect casting. Like, yeah, there's certain roles, like Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. There's no one can fulfill what he did. Something like that.
William Dafoe's Green Goblin.
William Dafoe's Green Goblin. Like he is perfect in that role.
I learned about this after I watched the movie. Did you know that William Dafoe actually sought after the role?
No,
he was shooting another movie in Europe when his agent told him about it, and he was like, I want to do this. I need whatever we can do to get me to audition for this. I want to do this, because it was at a time when superhero movies were like niche, and so he wanted to do it, and got it, and acted his ass off for it. And so thank God for William Dafoe being just a magnificent bastard, because dude. But in this movie, he's even better than he was in Spider-Man 1.
Yeah, because I like in that, because I mean, in Spider-Man 1 he has that mask. The mask is good, but it still hides its face. So in this, he makes it possible to
he's trying to fight back against the Goblin, just like he was in Spider-Man 1. And so he smashes the mask and tries to be Norman Osborn. He stumbles upon the Feast organization, which is Aunt May's homeless shelter, and she calls Peter to help him. So that's how they find the last one. And so now that all of the villains are together, Doctor Strange tries to send them home.
Yeah, so I was just saying with before I had a cough. What was nice was he throws out the mask, and the mask was useful, in Spider-Man 1 to really, so that missing. But because the mask gets smashed, as you said, it really allows William Dafoe to do the menacing faces of the Green Goblin himself, and he just nails it the entire movie.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. He toes the line between being evil and being not evil, and because he has his own ulterior motives, and he plays it beautifully. So now all of the villains are together. Doctor Strange tries to send them home, and reveals that they were all taken from their timelines right before they died. So sending them back would effectively kill them. And so this is what I mean by they nailed Peter, because Peter wants to save them. Peter wants to send them back to their timelines better so that they won't have to die. And so Doctor Strange thinks that's laughable. Like, you can't save these guys. This is their fate. Their fate is to die. Like, you cannot save them. But Peter thinks that he can, and damn right knows that he can. So he takes this magical box that basically sends them all back, and he has a really cool fight with Doctor Strange that he wins through his own ingenuity, and takes the villains, and they go back to Happy's apartment with the promise that he's gonna fix them. And all the villains, it takes some convincing for some of them, but he goes to Happy's apartment where he discovered that Tony Stark had a I don't want to say a 3D printer, because it wasn't like a 3D printer. Yeah, it's a fabricator. Yeah. And starts getting to work making things to help these villains basically revert their changes and make them whole again, essentially. And so he starts with Dr. Octopus because Doc Ock is the biggest dissenter, saying that they don't need help. They we're just gonna stay here. We're gonna everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna be villains here. Who cares? And so with Norman Osborn's help, who is not the Goblin currently, like he is fully invested in Peter's cause to try to help everybody. He makes a gadget that basically stops the interference of Doc Ock's arms, and he's mentally fine again. Like, it cuts the influence of the arms out, and so he can control the arms, and he's of sound mind. And so Doc Ock, Peter, and Norman Osborn get to work on curing everybody else. And they eventually find cures for everybody else. But that's when the group is starting to that's when some of the group is starting to have second doubts. So Electro doesn't want to get fixed because he doesn't think there's anything wrong. He just wants to be pure energy, and he likes the energy of this world. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, he shot blue lightning. In this one, he shoots yellow lightning, so I guess the energy is different in the worlds.
It could also just because, Marvel went, come back, like, it's orange, not blue. And he's not all energy like they did in, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like, we're just going to fix it. Because you notice, like, when the fight happens later in the movie, his suit, like the lighting around it, makes the mask.
Yep.
So it looks
Super
like
cool.
Electro again.
Yeah.
It's great how they fixed him.
Yeah, and so he starts to have second doubts. Sandman doesn't want to be fixed either because he just wants to be sent home to see his daughter. So he was already on board with Doctor Strange sending him home, even though he was going to die. And then this is when the Goblin takes over for Norman Osborn. And so basically what happens is Norman, Sandman, Lizard, and Electro all turn on Peter, and we have this huge fight in the apartment building between Spider-Man and Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, whatever you want to call him. He's not wearing a suit. And it is a brutal fight.
Wow. This is the most I've seen, like, most visual fight I've seen Tom Holland have.
Yeah. It's throughout the entirety of the apartment building. On the outside of the apartment building, Green Goblin is just knocking the shit out of Tom Holland.
And so there's a scene like Spider-Man's like on him, like punch him in the face, and he's just laughing while he's hitting him.
Yeah.
Like he does not do anything to him.
I mean, he's like freaking suplexing him in through floors and stuff. It's insane. And so Spider-Man is effectively beaten. And so earlier, Spider-Man, before he starts holding off the Horde, tells Aunt May to run because Aunt May has all the cures still. And so that's who Norman Osborn was going after, and Peter was standing in the way. And so in the lobby of the apartment complex, Norman Osborn's just wailing on Peter, and Aunt May comes and injects Norman with some anti-goblin serum, basically, that they had made. But it doesn't work. It's assumed that Norman Osborn kind of messed it up. Yeah, sabotaged it. And so Norman calls his glider down to hit Aunt May, and it sends her flying across. And then he gets on it and leaves as cops show up. Because all the while, J.J. Jameson is recording and basically called the cops and made it out to be Spider-Man. That was the problem, because Spider-Man brought the villains there. And so, being hit with one's glider in the past has killed somebody. But Aunt May gets up and she's fine, and she reassures Peter that she's fine and that they need to get out of there. But she keeps holding her bag in front of her. And so after a moment, she kind of gets woozy and lays down. And it's revealed that she has been gravely wounded. And the next, 3 minutes of that movie are the most gut-wrenching scenes that Tom Holland has ever had to go through. Tom Holland Spider-Man has ever had to go through, with Aunt May dying.
Yeah, I did not expect Aunt May to die in this at all.
I didn't either.
I mean, as soon as she said the line, though, because, Peter, at the moment before she kind of lays down, Peter's having doubts of, doing the right thing. And, so maybe we should have sent him back and just, let them all die. And she hits him with the line, with great power comes great responsibility. And just like, as soon as she said it, I'm like, oh, you just sealed your fate.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Yep. And I was like, the first time that word's ever uttered. And it's like, oh my God. And so... Yeah, so Peter lays her down, and he looks at his hand, and it's covered in blood, and he removes the bag that she's holding in front of her chest, and there's the wound from the glider. And she dies, and Peter is sitting there trying to wake her up, and everything. And so right as the police are closing in on Peter and Aunt May, Happy pulls up, doesn't know what's going on, but he pulls in front of the police and looks over at Peter and sees Aunt May and just tells Peter to run. And so they detain Happy and open fire on Spider-Man, and they shoot him in the arm. And so Peter takes the bag of the cures and runs, and Aunt May's just there. And it's at this point that I want to bring something up, and actually I'll save it for another part. We'll skip past it. It's stronger when I'm thinking. It's stronger because I'm thinking about the other part.
Okay.
And so a defeated Spider-Man runs off into the night. And it's at this point that we flash back to Ned and MJ, who are at Ned's house, watching all of this unfold on the news. And so they are very upset because they know Peter's obviously very upset. And so Ned took Doctor Strange's sling ring, and so they try to use it because Ned throughout this entire movie claims that he's magical.
Those claims bear fruit.
Yeah, because he gets the sling ring to work, and so he says that he wants to find Peter Parker, and it opens up to an alleyway where there is a Spider-Man, and that Spider-Man comes through the portal. It's not Tom Holland. It is Andrew Garfield, the Amazing Spider-Man. Comes to the portal and is very confused. He sees these people asking about Peter Parker, and he knows that he is Peter Parker. And so they ask him to prove that he's Spider-Man. And so he jumps up with a hand and sticks up on the roof, on the ceiling. And they're like, okay, yeah, we need more than that. And he's like, seriously? I'm hanging to the ceiling. And so he gets all the way up there like Spider-Man does. And Ned's grandma asks him to clean a cobweb out of the corner. And after a moment of like, seriously, he does it. And that was one of the funniest parts for me. That he actually does it. Yeah. And so then he gets down. And they're like, okay, well, you are Peter Parker, but you're not our Peter Parker. So they give it one more try. And a middle-aged man with a comb over and wearing a sweater comes through, and it's one Tobey Maguire. And they're like, "Are you Peter Parker too?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am."
Weird in the theater because Garfield's Spider-Man, like the movies themselves, most people I've ventured to say, I mean, people between Garfield and Maguire specifically, of those two, most people would say that Maguire had the better Peter and Garfield the better Spider-Man. But what's weird is between the movies though, like the movies themselves, the Raimi trilogy is held in pretty high regard. Except for Spider-Man 3, that series is held pretty high. The main Spider-Man movies are not held in high regard at all. But in the theater, there was a louder cheer for Garfield, and nobody clapped for Maguire.
So what's weird, just like the Star Wars prequel trilogy, the Amazing Spider-Man movies have like tons of fans out of nowhere for some reason. Mm-hmm. Like when the first Amazing Spider-Man suit was added to PS5 remaster of Spider-Man, like people were like super excited about that suit over any of the other suits that were added. And it's like, that's one of the worst looking suits, and you're excited about this? Like, what the hell? So I don't know. Yeah, there's some Amazing Spider-Man apologists out there. But let me go on the record saying that this is one of those redeeming moments. This movie absolutely 100% redeemed Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
Oh, absolutely. I never thought he was a bad Spider-Man. I thought he was a great actor. I thought he didn't do. It's weird. His Peter Parker wasn't great because, unfortunately, he doesn't look like Peter Parker. He looks like...
Well, the writing for his movies weren't good either. I think he would have been a fine Peter Parker, but they kind of... This is another instance of misunderstanding. They made him a skater punk, which for 2007... Not 2007, 2011.
11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would have been fine, I think. But he's that's still too cool for Peter Parker.
I was say he was too cool for Peter.
But you could have made it. You could have made it work because I mean, arguably Tom Holland's too cool to be Peter Parker. They just just molded him around the time that he is living.
Yeah.
Because of that, the writing's so much better. Andrew Garfield did not have good writers.
No, that's the thing. He's I mean, in other regards, Garfield he's moved on, obviously, and done other things, and he's a phenomenal actor. He was a bad actor, a good actor given a terrible script.
Yep. So, but not this time. He's
not this time.
He's like the best character in the movie.
Honestly, yeah, I would argue that.
Yeah. Yeah. This movie is weird because it's simultaneously Spider-Man 3 for Tom Holland, Spider-Man 3 for Andrew Garfield, because he gets a lot of resolution in this movie as well, and kind of sort of Spider-Man 4 for Tobey Maguire, because he also gets some resolution when facing his villains too. And so it's super weird and super cool. But anyways, so yeah, we have the two other Spider-Man in the multiverse now, and they go to find Tom Holland's Peter Parker. And so Tobey, very calm, very like, I've seen this shit before, which is all of his lines in this. He's Dad Spider-Man in this.
Yeah, he's the mentor.
And so he's like, well, does he have a favorite place to go? And so early in the movie, him and MJ were hanging out on the roof of Midtown High. And so that's sure enough where Peter is, just sulking and mourning Aunt May's death. And so Ned and MJ come up to comfort him, and his spider sense starts going off, and he looks, and there's two other Spider-Men hanging like clinging to a rotunda on the building, and they jump down and are like, "Hey, what's up? We're Peter Parker too."
Honestly, this is probably one of the best things in the movie, honestly.
Yes, where they are teaching him that, like, hey, you gotta let this stuff go. This is like, because at this point Peter just wants him to go home. Like Peter's about to hit the button, and MJ and Ned stop him, and the other Peters step up and be like, "You got to let this go. Spider-Man cannot hold on to these vengeful thoughts." And so both of the other Spider-Men give their anecdotes of revenge, and Toby talks about how the person that killed Uncle Ben, he killed, and it didn't solve the problems. And Andrew Garfield, in a really cool moment, talks about after Gwen Stacy's death, like he got pushed too far and did some things that he regrets. And that's why like his Peter Parker is older and grizzled and kind of like, I don't want to say bloodthirsty, but like he's been pushed past the line.
He seems like a tired Spider-Man.
Yeah, because he even says too that he stopped being Peter Parker and only was Spider-Man after Gwen Stacy died, and both of the Spider-Men didn't want that to become of Tom Holland. So they're like, "We're gonna fix him and we're gonna help you," and Tom Holland's like, "Okay, let's do it." And so we get this really great scene of the three of them as Peters, using their technological and scientific knowledge to create the cures for the rest of the baddies. And so they are ready for the final fight. They all suit up, which is awesome. And we get the best moment in the movie where they're on the Statue of Liberty.
That one's too. So that was a cool scene right before us. They're still in the lab, and they're Garfield and Holland are like getting their web shooters ready.
Yeah.
And Maguire's just so confused. Like, what are those things for? And he's like, our web shooters. You don't have these? No, I can just do it myself. See?
Yeah.
And I was like,
and
how do you do that?
Yeah, Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield are just like blown away. And so they hatch the plan to use the not the Empire State Building, but the Statue of Liberty as like the go-to. Like all the villains will come here, and that's where they'll have the fight. And so before the fight, we get some really great Spider-Man v. Spider-Man v. Spider-Man banter. And Andrew Garfield's just obsessing over the organic web shooters.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, where do they come out? Like, you know, does
how do you make it?
Yeah, how do you make it? And then he's like, then Tom Holland goes, do webs come out of anywhere else?
It was so comfortable. I don't want to talk about this. This is uncomfortable.
and Andrew Garfield's like, sorry. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I don't have that.
And then they're talking about like their villains and like, you know, Spider-Man. Garfield's like, yeah, I fought, you know, a guy in a rhinoceros suit. And Maguire's like, yeah, I bought some like weird alien symbiote thing. He's like, no, I bought some dude in space.
Yeah, and Andrew Garfield's like, wait, what? In space?
Yeah.
And it's just great. Like I would literally pay so much money. I would find a way to fund it myself just to watch the three Spider-Men talk for an hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
It would be beautiful. And I'm hoping that when the movie comes out on Blu-ray, there's some like extended cut outtakes or something where that part is longer, because that's more what I want, baby, right there.
It's funny you should bring this up too. I mean, if you want to bring it up later, we can, but because let's be real, the secret of Garfield and Maguire, they were never in the trailer, so it's still technically a spoiler, but it was not a very well hidden secret.
No,
everyone assumed they're going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
But you, as a big Spider-Man fan, weren't really looking forward to them being in the movie at all.
I wasn't, because I was afraid that would overshadow Tom Holland's role in the movie, but they did it perfectly, where they still gave ample spotlight to the other Spider-Men, but this is still certifiably Tom Holland's story. This is his mess. He's got to clean it up. They are just helping. And that really shines through in a moment when the fight starts that I'll get to when we get there. But so banter's done, masks on, it's time for the final battle. And so they lure I think it's Electro and Lizard and Sandman first.
Yeah.
And so they start fighting, and they quickly get in each other's ways.
Yeah.
And so Tom Holland calls a timeout, and they kind of huddle up, and they all acknowledge how bad they are at this. And so Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are like, yeah, I've only fought by myself. And so that's when Tom Holland takes the reins and goes, okay, so I'm the only one that's fought on a team. I was an Avenger. To which Tobey Maguire responds, oh, congratulations. What is that? And I'm just like, I was just like, Dad, let me finish what I'm saying.
But even Garfield was like, is that a band? Were you in a band? So
And so, yeah, that's when I say this is Tom Holland's mess to clean up. Like, he takes control and it's like, all right, so I'm going to call the shots. I'm the only one that's fought on a team, so it makes perfect sense why I'm calling the shots. Let's go back at him. And so they start working as a cohesive unit. And so they get Sandman his cure just in time as Tobey Maguire is about to get swallowed by sand. And so now they're working on Electro and Lizard, and that's when a returning Doc Ock shows up. And Electro's the first one to seize him, and Electro's like, "All right, you can help us defeat these guys, so we can, ravage this world." And Doc Ock's like, "Yeah," and then takes the cure for Electro and slams it on him, and thus, giving the audience confirmation that Doc Ock's a good guy now. Like he's cured, he's good.
that was an awesome scene seeing that.
Yeah, and then Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield lure the Lizard in, and they play hot potato with that cure, and it's administered by Andrew Garfield, which is cool. I like how they gave each other's villains, like Lizard is Andrew Garfield's villain, so they gave him the cure. Sandman is Tobey Maguire's villain, so they gave him the cure. And so we get both those cures were given with like compassion, like, hey, we're Flint, we're gonna get you home to your daughter, or hey, Kurt, everything's gonna be fine, you're okay. And so everybody's getting cured except for one, and that's Green Goblin.
Yeah, kind of. I like also the point because you also bring up because we had also it was a very smart short scene, but because Doc Ock is good and Doc Ock is gonna fight, and Peter Parker finally comes face to face with him again. And he pulls off the mask. And it was just a very nice scene of just, hey, you grown up. That was that was a beautiful scene. And the cool thing too is like there's no animosity from Tobey Maguire's Peter. Like he lands there, he saw that Doc Ock did good. He can tell something is different, and it's just like, Doc, I'm so happy to see you. Like and I think that's exactly what he said. And Doc Ock reciprocates like, it's so good to see you too. Like he hasn't seen him in a long time. So yeah, that's just a great moment. But yeah, now we got a Doc Ock. Now we got a Green Goblin. Excuse me. So Green Goblin. So Tom Holland's Peter, goes and confronts Green Goblin, and the other Spider-Men don't. They let Peter have his moment, hoping that he will overcome the darkness, but it's a nasty fight. Peter's angry and unleashed and going for the kill blow. And like one of my favorite Spidey moves he uses, where he knocks him in the air, webs him up, and pulls him back down. I was like, oh yeah, there it is. Like, awesome. And so Green Goblin is beaten down, and Peter picks up the glider. Tom Holland picks up the glider and is about to kill Norman the same way he died in Spider-Man 1. And in a surprising moment, Tobey Maguire intervenes and grabs the glider and starts talking Tom Holland down, saying like, look, you cannot do this. He doesn't say anything.
Oh yeah, he doesn't say anything. Yeah, he just looks at him, and that look says, you cannot do this. This is not you. You need to stop. And right as Tom Holland's starting to calm down, Green Goblin shows his true colors, which is a bright freaking green, and stabs Tobey Maguire right in the back with a arm-mounted blade.
I was so scared, like, don't let this be Maguire's in. Please don't.
I know. I was like, I was panicked. I was like, oh no, you don't bring him here to kill him. Stop it.
Luckily, they don't do that.
No. So right as that happens, Peter lands the final blow. Well, Tom Holland lands the final blow on Doc Ock, knocking him out. Not Doc Ock, but Green Goblin, knocking him out. There's so many characters. And Andrew Garfield comes down to tend to Toby.
Yeah.
And so Doctor Strange showed up in the middle of the fight, and basically says like, "Hey, you did a good job. You cured all of them. We gotta send them back because the multiverse starts opening all around them, and everybody that knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man is coming through from all of the multiverse. And you see visages of classic Spider-Man villains in there. There's a couple rhinos. There was a couple scorpions. You know, all of them are coming through, and so they start to try to send them back, but the box doesn't work. And so Doctor Strange starts to cast another spell that is going to make to try to contain it. But it's not working. So Tom Holland comes up with the brilliant idea of, well, what if everybody forgot about Peter Parker? And Doctor Strange is hesitant at first, but he says that it'll work because he knows exactly what Peter's doing. And so Peter goes for it. And so everybody will forget that Peter Parker exists. So MJ, Doctor Strange, Captain America, everybody will forget that Peter Parker existed. They won't forget about Spider-Man, but they'll forget about Peter Parker. So Peter says his goodbyes to everybody, including MJ, and he gives MJ one last kiss. And he tells Doctor Strange he's ready, and Doctor Strange says, it was nice to meet you, Peter. And and Tom Holland responds, it was nice to meet you too, sir. And he goes, you can call me Steven, which is something that they were playing back and forth with through the whole movie. And so he activates the spell, everybody gets sent home, and the world forgets about Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. And so then we gotta get into the epilogue, and so nobody remembers Peter. So he goes to the pastry shop that MJ worked at and sees Ned and MJ there, and he has a piece of paper implying that he's going to tell MJ about him and try to basically restart their friendship and relationship. But he sees how happy her and Ned are and chooses not to. Because if there's one thing about Spider-Man, it's that the world hates Spider-Man.
This movie, the epilogue of this movie pushes that hard.
Yeah.
Peter Parker cannot be happy.
Nope. And so after that, he just orders the coffee and leaves, and he goes to see Aunt May's grave. And Happy is there.
Doesn't recognize him.
And they have a nice conversation of remembering Aunt May, and he asks Tom Holland how he knew her, and he just I can't remember what the reason he says. I think he says like feast or something like that, or something like that. So something passing that you wouldn't suspect, and so he walks off and he gets his own little apartment in New York, and that's it.
He has his own
yeah,
suit
and so
now.
he doesn't have the upgraded suit or anything anymore, and so in his apartment, after he gets it all set up, you see a sewing machine with a classic blue and red suit, and I'm sad they didn't reveal it, but I'm glad they didn't reveal it all at the same time. But it sees a nice shot of him swinging through Rockefeller Center in his new blue and red suit, homemade suit, and off into the moonlight. And so that's like that. This is like an origin trilogy of Peter becoming Spider-Man. So like in the next movie, I'm 100% sure he's going to start working at the Daily Bugle as a photographer or something, because that's what they've set up. Like
it's also interesting because I mean he's I was going to say. I mean, he'll have. I'm kind of because obviously you said you disagree with the thing is he was kind of Iron Man Jr. to an extent. He is that no longer. He is on his own, now, pure and simple. Which it's kind of nice because it allows we kind of mentioned this allows Marvel Marvel and Sony work together, but this does allow if Sony wants to just kind of break away a little bit. They shouldn't, but they can.
Yeah.
At this point, that's a good cutting off point.
Yeah.
But it allows Spider-Man to kind of Spider-Man can do his own thing. I mean, he should be part of obviously the grander MCU, but Spider-Man's such a big name, he can do his own thing and not be connected to it whatsoever.
Yeah. And so this gives the ability to do that. So yeah, they've. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he kept some of the tech from the upgraded suit.
Yeah.
I think it pushes him closer to Insomniac's Spider-Man, where he's mostly Spider-Man, but has like a little bit of tech to help him out, which is fine by me because I'm cool with that. So I cannot wait for the next Spider-Man movie because I want to see that suit. I want to see that classic blue and red suit, baby. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I'm so excited. But yeah, that's Spider-Man No Way Home.
You said you had a scene you want to discuss some about.
Yeah. So when they are talking about Uncle Ben, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, Peter just says that he's always had his aunt. It canonically speaking, Uncle Ben doesn't exist in this world.
Yeah.
Which is a very cool take on this, because again everybody thought that Uncle Ben had already died, but he was never mentioned, so there was no confirmation of that, and he still has not been mentioned, aside from in Marvel's What If. That version of Spider-Man in the zombie episode mentioned that he had an Uncle Ben, but that's not Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
No.
So in the MCU, there is no Uncle Ben, and so it was just Aunt May, which I think is really, really powerful. And that's why Aunt May utters the classic words, with great power comes great responsibility. She didn't say Uncle Ben used to say. She said, with great power comes great responsibility. And so Aunt May is this universe's Uncle Ben, which is a pretty cool and unique change to the formula, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it puts since they essentially killed off Aunt May so early, it puts a lot of good parenting on Aunt May exclusively, which is really, really cool. And I just like that change.
Yeah, that was a good change. I agree with that.
So yeah, that's No Way Home. I absolutely loved it. I loved everything about it. I think it's my third favorite Spider-Man movie, behind Into the Spider-Verse and Homecoming. I think it nailed everything that Spider-Man is in this movie. And I cannot wait for the next trilogy of Tom Holland movies, because even if it's just him straight up fighting villains, even if we don't do like a Spider-Geddon type Spider-Verse event live action, like I don't need all of that. I want more good Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah.
And Sony and Disney are cranking it out, and I could not be happier.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a Spider-Man fan right now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I cry in the corner with my DC stuff.
Shame, man. Shame. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this review. I think we already gave our scores. 9.75 for me, 9.5 for you. It's a must-see movie, especially if you're a Marvel fan, especially if you're a Spider-Man fan, especially if you're just a movie fan. This one's a really great one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It hits all the marks. All right. Nick, where can the lovely people of the internet find you?
So my Twitch is its_classified__. If you're watching this on YouTube on Caleb's channel, my YouTube is It's Classified Games. If you're watching on my channel, well, you already have it. And my Twitter is its__classified.
And all of my stuff. Excuse me. Steven Reinhardt, stop it. You can find me on this YouTube channel because you already found it, so good job. But if you want to find the rest of my stuff, you can find me on Twitter at dandy_lion777, or on Twitch. I stream Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays at dandylion_777. I did stream all of Miles Morales and some of Spider-Man PlayStation 5, so when Spider-Man 2 comes out, everything drops for that. So,
Yeah.
But until next time, thank you guys for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Adios.
Goodbye.